She's now bragging about the success of Snow White, which is a movie that's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and mainly because of her, and because nobody wanted to support her.
It seemed impossible that one of Disney's most treasured stories could turn into a cinematic headache. Yet here we are, and the controversy surrounding the live-action Snow White remake has reached a fever pitch. Once heralded as an ambitious reimagining of a beloved classic, this new iteration quickly morphed into a lightning rod for debate. On the surface, it looked like a grand production, a big budget, a rising star, and the promise of a story that would blend modern empowerment with fairy tale magic.
There are empty theaters all around the country. We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White, and it couldn't happen to a better person.
But it wasn't long before skeptical whispers swirled around the project, slowly chipping away at the once festive buzz. What set off these suspicions? Perhaps it was the cryptic rumors about script overhauls, the absence of beloved plot elements, or the baffling suggestion that the seven dwarfs would be replaced by CGI creatures. For dedicated fans, those who cherished the 1937 original, any deviation from the timeless fairy tale raised alarms. On the flip side, Disney loyalists were eager to see how a contemporary spin could refresh the classic. Either way, tension brewed. Now, the word disaster is trailing this film like a shadow, and it's not just critics piling on. Audiences, who typically give Disney a fair chance, are also raising eyebrows. Yet this fiasco is more than a mere cinematic flop.
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them.
It's a glimpse into what happens when a studio tries too hard to modernize without preserving the magic. But that was only the beginning of the meltdown. Soon, the controversy grew louder and the blame game began. Before we delve into the drama behind the scenes, let's look back at how this film built such sky-high expectations and then soared right off a cliff. When Disney first announced it would adapt Snow White for the modern age, fans envisioned lavish sets, nostalgic callbacks, and charming nods to the beloved original. Rumors spread that this version would keep the innocence of the 1937 classic while adding a fresh, empowering twist for today's viewers. People imagined vibrant songs, dazzling costumes, and, most critically, a careful update that wouldn't stray too far from the original's heart.
Don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too.
However, behind the scenes, cost overruns began spiraling out of control. Multiple insiders mentioned staggering production expenses, ballooning beyond typical boundaries for a fairy tale remake. Each new round of reshoots hammered the budget further, with every attempt at fixing the narrative seemingly complicating it more. Crew members, speaking on condition of anonymity, described an atmosphere of uncertainty. One week, entire plot lines would vanish. The next, they'd reappear with minor tweaks that left everyone confused. Soon, fans caught whiffs of these production hiccups when speculative reports revealed major last-minute changes to classic themes, particularly the removal of the iconic love story. While some argued that this was progress, others feared it was a betrayal of what made Snow White so enduring. The dwarfs themselves became a public relations nightmare. Allegedly, attempts to avoid stereotypes led to new concepts that only stoked more backlash.
For every one of the 18 hours I am in the Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actress.
Phrases like unsettling fever dream floated around social media after early test footage leaked. And what happened next would push the film to the edge of the cliff, an unforeseen PR storm centered on its leading lady. In a surprising turn, Rachel Zegler, handpicked for the titular role, found herself at the center of the tempest. First, her casting was celebrated. She had the talent and vocals to inject fresh energy into the classic, or so Disney hoped. Early interviews suggested she was honored to walk in Snow White's iconic shoes, but as soon as marketing kicked into high gear, her public statements took on a boldness that ignited its own wildfire. She defended the film's direction, describing how the revised story would empower young audiences by removing any reliance on a prince.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
Some applauded this intention. No one says female characters must be forever pining for love. But frustration mounted when her passionate defense, often laced with pointed remarks, seemed to alienate segments of the audience. Critics felt she was painting all detractors with the same brush, accusing them of refusing to embrace progress. Soon, social media erupted with negative chatter. Viewers who initially gave the film the benefit of the doubt began echoing the sentiment that Disney had lost the core of the classic. Comments about pay, white supremacists on set, or demanding hour-by-hour wages for costume shoots fanned the flames.
So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern-day feminism and the left in general, and Hollywood.
Her approach, however earnest, came across to many as condescending or tone-deaf, fueling a wave of negativity that overshadowed even the film's marketing. Several high-profile Disney supporters who typically defend the studio's updates started to withdraw. They posted lukewarm or outright negative reactions, citing an incoherent storyline and a vibe that didn't match the fairy tale fantasy everyone expected. But the fallout wasn't limited to social media chatter. One after another, controversies piled up like dominoes, leading to an even bigger question. How would Disney handle this firestorm and salvage its massive investment? Conflict, however, went deeper than a few combative interviews or budget woes. According to many who have seen advanced screenings or followed the leaks, the script itself seemed disjointed.
Her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern-day America must make that choice.
Any movie can incorporate progressive angles. Fairy tales have been reinvented countless times. But watchers describe entire sections that felt patched together, leading to abrupt cuts and jarring tonal shifts. At one point, rumor suggests a celebratory dance sequence bursts onto the screen, with cast members clad in matching white outfits in a scene that, for many, was downright bizarre. Those who expected a whimsical retelling found themselves bewildered by modern references and unusual pacing. Felt as though multiple directors had created scenes independently, then slapped them together without a unifying vision.
Be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince, like that's incongruous bullshit. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment.
Allegedly, test audiences provided negative feedback, prompting more reshoots. Yet each fix introduced new wrinkles. Characters spoke about leadership and self-discovery, then switched gears into comedic bits that felt out of place. Traditional fans bemoaned the near-total erasure of romance. Defenders of the film insisted that ditching the prince storyline was an overdue step, but many felt the solution was half-hearted at best. In the end, it wasn't a matter of being too modern. Rather, the crux of the issue, as fans lamented, was a glaring lack of coherence. Weaving contemporary messages into a classic can work, but audiences don't forgive scattered storytelling or unearned plot points. And it's this perceived lack of fundamental craft that triggered the harshest criticisms. Some said they walked away not only unconvinced by the new themes, but also confused about what exactly the movie wanted to say.
So, I mean, this woman has clicked every box. And just for cherry on top at the end, she gave an interview last week talking about how they were basically a bunch of white supremacists on the set of West Side Story.
Soon, the negative buzz spiraled into something more tangible, the possibility that Disney might quietly distance itself from the very film it once hyped. After all, nothing speaks louder to a studio's lack of confidence than scaling down its own promotional efforts. As if the swirling rumors and social media uproar weren't enough, speculation arose that the studio began pulling or withholding merchandise. In the months before the movie's release, fans anticipated a flood of collectible dolls, costume replicas, and themed items. This was standard procedure for any big Disney release, typically a reliable source of revenue. Yet suspiciously, certain product lines failed to appear, while others vanished from shelves faster than expected. Some reports claim that limited Snow White 2025 items went on sale only to be heavily discounted soon after.
Where Steven Spielberg and co. were demanding that she prove how Latina she really is, since her name doesn't sound Latina. And she was angrily saying, did I have to bring in my little abuelita for you to believe that I was Latina?
This abrupt scaling back sparked chatter that Disney had resigned itself to the grim box office forecasts. Why pour more money into a promotional campaign if every sign points to dismal returns? Insiders also suggest that negative fan sentiment scared off potential store buyers, who didn't want to stock merchandise tied to a poorly performing remake. During investor calls, top Disney officials, Bob Iger included, offered measured statements. He mentioned that the studio's real mission was to entertain, not send messaging, a remark that many saw as a subtle jab at the controversies overshadowing this film. Yet numbers don't lie, and the film's budget was an open secret. With so much capital sunk into what was shaping up to be a massive misfire, Disney's leadership faced serious questions. The meltdown had advanced from rumor to reality, and the public scrutiny only worsened as opening weekend drew near.
Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live-action Disney adaptation ever.
But the financial damage wasn't the only consequence. As the days ticked by, talk of a larger cultural shift among Disney fans and shareholders took hold, suggesting deeper cracks in the studio's longtime formula. Flops can happen in Hollywood. Not every project becomes a blockbuster. But when you're Disney and you're revamping one of the most iconic animated films in history, failure draws especially bright spotlights.
That's her thanks to Steven Spielberg, who discovered her and made her. So she's an ingrate, she's annoying, and I think she's probably two and done.
Early box office tracking indicated a lack of enthusiasm, with some regions reporting near-empty theaters. Critics unleashed scathing reviews, and even brand-loyal fans admitted the film lacked charm, coherence, or reason to recommend it. Analysts began labeling Snow White 2025 a potential record-breaker in the worst possible sense. Speculations about a $250 million-plus budget circulated. Marketing and reshoots, rumored to be in the tens of millions, ballooned overall costs to stratospheric levels. The film would have needed an extraordinary turnout just to break even. Unfortunately, poor word of mouth and negative press hammered any chance of success from the get-go. The question many insiders asked wasn't merely about the final figure. It was whether this fiasco would fundamentally change Disney's approach to future live-action reboots. Several years earlier, even lukewarm reimaginings of Disney classics generated decent global box office returns. But Snow White 2025 proved that brand recognition can't always overcome audience disapproval, especially when fans feel an adaptation has strayed too far from the essence of the original. This was where the cultural backlash took on another layer. It wasn't just about budgets or reshoots anymore. It was a conversation about how Disney might have lost its knack for blending nostalgia with innovation, a precarious balancing act that this project, to many, fumbled outright. It's no secret that fairy tales have been rewritten countless times. Classics from the Grimms to Hans Christian Andersen have seen a variety of reinterpretations, some lauded, some panned. But successful adaptations keep a certain spark alive. They honor the simplicity of the source, even when injecting new layers of complexity or contemporary significance. In the minds of many viewers, the Snow White remake came off as heavy-handed, using broad, unsubtle strokes to deliver modern lessons without weaving them naturally into the narrative. Was it because key decision-makers believed the older story was simply too outdated? Possibly. Rachel Zegler repeatedly championed the idea that removing Snow White's romantic dependency was a vital step forward. While progress is rarely a problem, the hasty removal of iconic story elements left fans wondering whether the filmmakers truly understood the magic behind the original. Instead of a thoughtful evolution of Snow White's character, critics felt they got a bland, pseudo-empowered heroine. Jokes about the prince who stalked her overshadowed any genuine sense of wonder or emotional growth. Moreover, the swirling drama around how the dwarfs were either replaced or minimized struck a nerve. Advocates for casting actual actors with dwarfism felt sidelined by certain production decisions. Meanwhile, defenders of the film argued that the original portrayal was outdated. That might be a fair conversation, but viewers say the final outcome was so awkward that it satisfied no one. Instead of building a truly inclusive reimagining, the story's disjointed approach cast a shadow over every aspect of the production. By now, the film's brand was battered, and many who might have been intrigued simply decided to skip it. Negative social media chatter, fueled by repeated call-outs of inconsistent storytelling, overshadowed any progressive goals the movie had. Disney found itself stuck in an odd paradox, accused by some of championing woke changes while simultaneously failing to deliver a coherent narrative that might justify those updates. Ultimately, the Snow White 2025 saga stands as a stark cautionary tale, not just for Disney but for all major studios. Throwing money at a recognizable property no longer guarantees success, especially when an adaptation tosses out the very qualities that endeared the original to audiences worldwide. Instead of topping the charts, this film is shaping up to be Disney's biggest live-action flop. It has become a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over how far classic stories can be bent to reflect modern ideals before they snap altogether. Many industry insiders predict a reckoning. Bob Iger and the Disney board, under mounting shareholder pressure, might drastically curtail future big-budget remakes, at least until they figure out how to capture the essence of the original while responsibly introducing new themes. Angry fans, once unwavering in their love for Disney, now question whether the studio's creative strategy has drifted too far from its roots. Will this fiasco prompt a renewed focus on storytelling fundamentals, or will Disney gamble again, convinced it can correct course next time? In the end, viewers are left with a puzzling piece of cinema that tried to say something profound but ended up stumbling over itself. Merchandising prospects have gone cold, critical reviews are merciless, and the behind-the-scenes drama is the only thing consistently generating clicks. Whether Snow White 2025 will be quietly buried in the annals of Disney history or studied as an example of what not to do remains to be seen. For now, this question lingers. Will the studio that revolutionized modern animation learn from this devastating misstep and reignite the spark of true storytelling magic, or have they lost their way for good? No matter where you stand on the debate, whether you're an ardent fan of the original fairy tale, an advocate for modern retellings, or simply a movie buff fascinated by Hollywood debacles, this Snow White remake stands out as a pivotal moment. It offers a revealing glimpse into the complexities of adapting classics in an era that demands both innovation and authenticity. And perhaps that's the real lesson here. Without a careful blend of reverence for the past and thoughtful updates for the present, even the mightiest studios can discover that high hopes and colossal budgets are never enough to guarantee a fairy tale ending.